Let's be honest. Life has a brutal habit of making us repeat the exact same lesson. The harder I try to force outcomes, timelines, or how others act, the more drained I get. We map out every single detail of our days, convinced that if we just grip harder and refuse to surrender, the pieces will magically fit. But we don't find peace. We just build pressure. Instead of focus, we get a headache. In my practice, I ask this: what if the issue isn't a lack of effort, but an obsession with control? The ancient Stoics grasped a hard truth most of us still fight. Our suffering sparks the exact second we demand reality follow our personal script. Real freedom kicks in when I restrict my focus to what I actually own: my actions, my attitude, and how I handle the chaos. The minute you drop the illusion of control and trust the work, a weird shift occurs. The noise in your head stops. Your choices sharpen, and things actually start moving smoothly. In my studies, I've found modern anxiety mostly stems from our absolute addiction to specific end results. We tell ourselves we can finally exhale once that one specific thing happens. Waiting on a job offer, a raise, a perfect partner, or public applause. We construct this rigid mental movie of how our story is supposed to play out. Then we lock our happiness to that fantasy. Here is the trap. The tighter my grip on a future outcome, the worse my anxiety gets. Any slight delay feels like a total defeat. Every roadblock seems hostile. We stop living and start testing reality, checking if the universe is obeying our orders. As a Stoic practitioner, I see this right here as the absolute root of human misery. Epictetus made it clear: facts don't upset us. The expectations we forcefully glue to those facts do. When the actual world breaks our mental script, the anger hits fast. We assume we are broken or the system is rigged. But Stoic logic argues the event is neutral. The real disease is our stubborn demand for a specific ending. Look around at how many people delay basic satisfaction until some future milestone hits. You hear it daily. I'll be confident after the promotion. Or, I'll finally matter once I find a partner who stays. Others peg their self-worth to a bank balance or social status. In every single scenario, the brain quietly sells the same lie. Joy is coming later, right after this condition is met. That mindset is a quiet, deadly poison. Basing your peace on factors you don't own means handing your sanity over to pure chance. The hard truth? Results depend on 1,000 things outside your reach. Other people choose. Roadblocks drop out of nowhere. Clocks change. Doors open and slam shut. I can steer my ship, sure, but I cannot order the ocean around. The old philosophers knew this. That is why my daily practice violently separates what is in my power from what simply is not. You own your actions. You own your grit, your work ethic, and your current mindset. The rest is just out there in the wild. Stick with me here. When you chain your peace strictly to what you control, something massive shifts. The daily grind gets lighter. Fear drains away. I stopped walking through life carrying the terrifying weight of needing a perfect ending. Instead, my only job is executing the next right move with total integrity. Marcus Aurelius constantly wrote this to himself. Our job isn't to direct the whole universe. It is just to play our own part well. Moving your focus straight from the finish line back to the daily work buys you the exact freedom everyone else is hunting for. Picture a painter staring at an empty canvas. If they fixate on the final gallery show, the critics, or the eventual price tag, all that pressure chokes out the actual art. Every stroke gets stiff. The mind locks up, playing it safe, terrified of making a bad mark. But when I teach students to drop that obsession with the final product and just paint, a totally different mental state takes over. Their attention locks into the exact second they are in. Hands move fast. Ideas actually breathe. The irony is, that is exactly when mastery happens. Not through gripping the brush tighter, but by vanishing entirely into the work itself. This same Stoic rule runs deep across all areas. Human connection is a massive one. We trigger massive emotional anxiety the minute we start forcing a relationship to follow a specific script. Panicking over whether someone will stay, if the spark will hold, or if the future matches your daydream. In my experience, that needy attachment builds a quiet, suffocating pressure both sides eventually feel. Talks turn rigid. Unspoken demands pile up, and real fear kills the actual bond. But walk into it with a stoic calm, focusing entirely on showing up, being honest, and respecting the moment, and everything flips. Suddenly there's room to breathe. Real connection replaces the tired performance. The bond isn't being shoved down a narrow hallway anymore, and usually, that is exactly why it thrives organically. Let's get one thing straight. Detaching from results doesn't mean we stop caring. The Stoics demanded intense, disciplined, and purposeful action from themselves. The secret is that the drive comes from respecting the craft itself, not out of sheer desperation for a prize. When you tackle meaningful work, bring absolute fire. Give it everything, and prep like a professional. Keep learning. Act with solid integrity. But once you make your move, drop the expectation that the universe owes you a specific result. This completely shifts how we experience hard work. Instead of agonizing, "Will this work out?" you ask the true practitioner's question: did I bring my absolute best character to this exact moment? Here is a simple discipline you and I can use. Start every morning by remembering outcomes belong entirely to the chaotic world, but your actions belong 100% to you. Your only real job? Act wisely, speak the honest truth, and face adversity with unbreakable resilience. Lock your focus right there, and you build an unshakable core. Success transforms from a desperate, exhausting chase into something you simply participate in as life unfolds. And if things go completely sideways, you stay totally grounded. Why? Because as a practitioner, your self-worth was never tied to the final score anyway. Real freedom hits the second you realize peace doesn't come from forcing results. It comes entirely from mastering exactly how you show up for the daily grind. Every single hardship hits us twice. Once out there in reality, and once inside our own mind. Usually that internal mental hit hurts way more, whether it is a blown project, a harsh conversation, or a sudden, brutal setback. These blows are just part of being alive, but what decides if they crush you or forge you is not the event itself. It is strictly how your mind frames the strike. In Stoic philosophy, we recognize the mind is either a sharp weapon you wield or a relentless enemy that destroys you if you refuse to train it. Unchecked thoughts will drag you straight into dark places. That is exactly why taming the mind is the absolute core, non-negotiable discipline we practice in Stoicism today. The founders knew external forces rarely dictate a person's fate. Our own internal interpretations do all the heavy lifting. Notice how fast your brain spins fiction. One tiny error, and instantly that inner critic starts spitting out brutal, permanent judgments about your worth. You convince yourself you are weak, slow, or entirely unfit for the heavy responsibilities sitting right in front of your face. One bad minute mutates into fake proof for a massive, toxic story about who you are. The truth? It was just a standard learning curve. But your brain magnifies the weight. This is exactly how sloppy, untrained thinking turns a basic daily hurdle into deep, unnecessary misery. Epictetus taught us a core rule. The actual event never upsets you. Your personal judgment of the event does. Label a moment as total humiliation or weakness, and your physical body instantly locks up with fear, severe stress, and crushing doubt. But frame that exact same moment as raw data, a hard lesson, or a passing storm, the emotional grip completely vanishes. Modern therapy is just catching up to what we practitioners knew centuries ago. You can step back, stare down your own thoughts, and completely refuse to blindly believe them. William James nailed it when he said our ultimate weapon against stress is simply choosing one solid thought over a weak one. That is pure Stoic practice. Your brain spits out thousands of random mental impressions daily. Some give hope, some push fear. Most are completely distorted. Our real work together is deciding which thoughts get focus and which get ignored. When a dark thought hits, it screams for your immediate, blind belief. Let's examine that. It lies to you, screaming that everything is doomed, failure is locked in, and tomorrow will just recycle yesterday's brutal pain. But as a practitioner, you hit pause. You refuse the automatic reaction, stepping back to ask a much sharper question. Is this actually true, or just raw fear running its mouth? Look at two different people taking the exact same intense heat on the job. Both get chewed out by a boss for messing up. The untrained person lets their brain spiral into vicious, toxic self-hate. They swallow the critique as hard proof they are worthless. Anxiety spikes by the hour. Suddenly, every new assignment is just another trap waiting to ruin them. Naturally, their daily performance tanks. Not from a lack of skill, but because their own mind staged a brutal, internal mutiny. Our trained Stoic takes the exact same fire, but flips the script. Instead of tying it to their ego, they process it strictly as raw data. They ask, what is the real lesson here? How do I sharpen my tactics moving forward? The heat becomes the forge, not a threat to their ego. Over time, this discipline builds ironclad confidence. Every single obstacle is used as fuel for personal growth, never a verdict on their value. In our practice, we compare the mind to a dirt field. You must actively farm it. Leave dirt alone and weeds choke it out. Ignore your own mind, and it rapidly overgrows with deep paranoia, bitter resentment, and entirely useless, draining anxiety. Old failures play on an endless loop. Fake, future disasters terrorize you long before a single real threat even steps into the room. Your focus drifts from the present, the only place life actually exists. That is why our philosophy demands absolute, brutal awareness of your inner voice. Track those mental habits, and you will spot the hard truth. Your own imagination manufactures way more panic than reality ever could. Seneca told us straight, we suffer far more in imagination than in reality. That explains exactly why you feel crushed by anxiety, even when today is actually perfectly fine. Let's be totally clear. Training your mind is never about crushing emotions or faking toxic positivity. It means stepping up to respond with strict intention, not reflex. When anger hits, you study the feeling, but you never let it drive the car. When fear shows up, you aggressively interrogate it. You never just roll over and surrender. Practice this daily, and you build a massive fortress between yourself and your thoughts. You finally realize a random thought is not a strict command. It is just a passing event you get to judge. I want you and I to remember this. Mastering this brings real authority back. You are no longer a slave to the loudest, most frantic voice in your head. As practitioners, you and I need one specific question whenever our minds start racing. I ask myself, what is truly within my control right now? The truth is always simpler than my anxiety expects. I can govern the effort I apply to my work, the steadiness of my breath, the integrity of my actions, and the patience I carry into the room. By forcing my focus back to these quiet choices, I anchor my awareness in the present. That is where our real power lives. With daily practice, this discipline completely changes how hardships hit us. Instead of storms sweeping me away, they become raw material to practice clarity and steadiness. Mental toughness is never about making things easy. It means building the muscle to face hard things with quiet composure and deliberate action. Patience is easily the hardest virtue I practice, especially since our world constantly screams about getting fast results. Everywhere we look, loud voices insist success must be instant, that growth should show up right away. And if a process takes time, we assume we are failing. That quiet pressure drives so many into deep frustration. We work hard, we sweat. We commit entirely to self-improvement. Yet the payoffs we expect do not arrive quickly. The second that happens, the untrained mind starts questioning the entire path. I start wondering if my effort is useless. I wonder if the goal is fake, or if everyone else is just running past me. But here is the truth of our practice. Life ignores our imagined schedules. The deepest transformations happen quietly underground, long before the first green shoot shows. The old Stoics knew firsthand that true growth runs on a rhythm you cannot rush. Epictetus bluntly told his students that nothing great is created suddenly. Real wisdom, solid character, and genuine mastery need years to bake. You cannot make a tree grow by yanking its branches, and you cannot force inner strength through sheer impatience. Whenever I try to force my way through the process, I usually break the very progress I was trying to build. Chasing instant wins breeds heavy discouragement, and that frustration makes so many practitioners quit right before the real internal shift finally has space to take root. Think of my own daily practice. Maybe studying a tough language, refining a physical craft, or building a solid career. In those early days, the daily progress feels painfully slow. The daily wins are tiny and completely invisible to everyone else. If I measure my worth by how fast the trophy arrives, the work becomes pure emotional exhaustion. Every single day without a massive breakthrough feels like a loss. Once I accept that mastery is a slow burn, my focus drops speed and chooses consistency. I stop asking why I am not there yet. I just sit down and practice slightly better than yesterday. Over the years, those quiet reps compound into complete transformation. Stick with me here. The real gap between masters and quitters comes down to how they handle the passage of time. Our modern world makes Stoic patience brutal by feeding us instant gratification. Our phones drop facts immediately, movies instantly, and texts inside of 2 seconds. That digital speed poisons the brain, tricking me into demanding instant payoffs from real life. But philosophy and personal growth laugh at the rules of digital convenience. Forging real confidence, earning hard wisdom, and walking a true path demands heavy lifting over incredibly long seasons. Applying internet speed to human soulcraft only builds fake pressure and guarantees misery. Our philosophical ancestors practiced a totally different view of time. Rather than treating a long wait as a red flag, I try to see time as my partner in the work. Marcus Aurelius constantly wrote to himself that everything runs on a much larger natural clock. Winter fades to spring slowly. Trees add rings year by year, and the hardest granite mountains took millions of years to take shape. When I finally admit I belong to that same deep rhythm, I can let go of the chokehold of my own fake deadlines. My work gets quieter. The panic that I'm running late disappears. But trusting this slow clock forces me to have absolute faith in my own messy journey. Sometimes the exact doors I want stay shut simply because I lack the character to survive what is behind them. Real leadership might land on my desk only after my ego cools down. A serious relationship might wait until I actually know myself well enough to not ruin it. What feels like an unfair delay is almost always a quiet, intense period of preparation. Recognizing that truth shifts everything. Waiting is no longer wasted hours. It is the curriculum. Picture my mind like a sculptor standing at a marble block. The final piece looks smooth and meant to be, but the real work was 1,000 brutal hammer swings, knocking away tiny flakes of dust. If I demanded instant perfection with a single heavy swing, the whole stone would shatter. Instead, I have to trust those tiny chips are doing the work. A solid life operates on that exact same physics. Every failure, every sweaty hour of focus, carves out the person I am meant to be. Even on the stagnant days, the chisel is still moving. You and I know trusting the process never means getting lazy or waiting for a magical handout from the sky. The ancient practitioners never told us to drop our duties. Our job is brutal, consistent daily action, married to total acceptance of how slow the payoff arrives. You and I must keep learning, practicing, and doing the hard work. But we must also drop the demand for instant rewards. Balancing our daily effort with stoic patience builds a foundation of absolute, unshakable stability. True motivation stems from a commitment to personal growth, not the frantic anxiety of fighting the clock. Practice this, and the entire emotional reality of chasing your goals completely shifts. Instead of agonizing over when success might finally show up, we anchor ourselves completely in the present work. Every single step matters as part of a larger, deliberate process. Doubt loses its grip because you realize real progress almost never shows itself in the moment. When we trust the natural pace of growth, our path opens up with sharp clarity and real resilience. What used to feel like frustrating delays simply becomes the quiet preparation required for lasting success. Society claims success requires outworking everyone, grabbing every single chance and never resting. To the untrained eye, this kind of relentless hustle looks exactly like ambition. But dig a little deeper. That drive is usually fueled by something heavier: desperation. When our actions stem from the fear of missing out, failing, or being inadequate, the mind turns entirely restless, chaotic, and dangerously scattered. We rush our choices. Focus snaps from one thing to the next, blurring our true purpose. Instead of moving with clear intent, we simply react to external pressure. Let's look at the Stoics. They warned us that action without inner calm breeds chaos, not progress. Real effectiveness never comes from frantic, blind effort. It demands deliberate action, anchored in firm values and calm awareness. Epictetus taught that before doing anything, we must first decide who we actually want to be. That simple rule holds massive power. Without a clear identity, your actions just become weak reactions to random events. You hunt for approval when praised. You completely panic when doors seem to close. You sprint toward anything promising a quick win. But when you firmly know the character you want to build, your daily actions naturally fall in line with that path. Instead of begging for immediate results, you ask yourself, what move actually reflects the strong character I am trying to forge? That shift looks small, but it fundamentally rewires how we make choices. The first question feeds entirely on a deep anxiety about the outcome. The second is anchored in a solid purpose. Desperation breeds a toxic urgency that ruins our judgment. When we feel pressured to win right now, we totally ignore the real question. Are these actions actually pulling us toward the life we truly want? Picture someone hunting for a job, crushed under the pressure to succeed as fast as humanly possible. Blinded by panic, they blast applications everywhere without a second thought. They chase roles that ignore their actual skills, core interests, and personal values. Every single rejection feels like a fatal blow. Why? Because their self-worth is chained to outcomes they cannot control. Now look at another person facing the exact same struggle, but armed with stoic patience and intention. They pause to map their strengths, sharpen their tools, and target where they actually belong. They still work incredibly hard, but their energy is focused as a laser, not scattered. Eventually, this deliberate mindset attracts far better opportunities. Their actions broadcast pure clarity instead of desperate panic. We see this exact same philosophy play out in relationships. When someone seeks connection out of sheer desperation, their actions bleed deep insecurity. They beg for constant reassurance. They dissect every single text, and they rush aggressively to lock the relationship down. While they just want to feel valued and loved, they end up creating heavy pressure that drives people away. Real connection requires the oxygen of mutual respect and emotional grounding. When you enter a bond knowing your own worth, you act like yourself. You actually listen. You speak the truth and let the bond grow organically without forcing it onto some rigid schedule. That quiet presence builds solid, authentic ties because it totally rejects the fear of loss. Purposeful living always starts by examining the real motives driving you. Before chasing any prize, a philosopher pauses to ask why it even matters. Are you driven by curiosity, self-mastery, and the need to offer something real? Or are you just terrified of falling behind the pack? These two mindsets create drastically different realities in your mind. Actions born from fear constantly carry a tight tension. Actions rooted in purpose generate a calm, sustainable energy that lasts. Aristotle taught us to live in alignment with virtue. He knew that deep fulfillment means matching our actions to the absolute highest traits of character. The Stoics agreed completely. They used wisdom, courage, strict discipline, and justice as the absolute compass for taking meaningful action. Let these virtues steer your choices instead of panicking over the outcome. Your path will stay perfectly clear, even when the world around you gets chaotic. Another pillar of this practice is pure patience. Desperation sprints forward blind, terrified that time is rapidly slipping away. Purpose, though, knows that deliberate moves build much stronger results. A master chess player never moves just to break the heavy silence. They study the board, map the possibilities, and strike with total intention. Reality rewards that exact same mindset. When you step back from the crushing pressure, you finally see the grand design of the game you are playing. That sharp clarity fuels long-term mastery, rather than just buying you a brief escape from anxiety. Stick with me on this. When your drive shifts from desperation to purpose, your entire energy transforms. As practitioners, we stop feeling like we're sprinting after mirages. Instead, we stand firmly rooted in the path we've chosen. Roadblocks don't shake who we are, because our worth isn't chained to quick wins anymore. Every single step simply becomes part of a larger, intentional practice. Seneca nailed this when he noted that a steady mind builds much better outcomes than a panicked one. When we align our daily actions with our core values, we start walking through life with quiet confidence. Progress isn't always fast, but it stays rock solid because it's built on clarity, not fear. Let's look at a problem you and I both face: the absolutely exhausting habit of trying to control everything. We try to manage how people perceive us, how situations play out, how fast we succeed, and exactly what tomorrow looks like. Honestly, the urge makes sense at first. It feels entirely natural to crave certainty, safety, and a predictable map. But the tighter we grip the steering wheel, the more internal tension we build. Reality doesn't care about our perfect plans. Others operate on their own messy emotions. Opportunities show up and vanish without warning, and the world shifts in ways no amount of planning could ever predict. When we base our inner peace on managing those wild forces, pure frustration is the only guaranteed result. The ancient Stoics spotted this trap thousands of years ago and gave us a way out. Real mental toughness isn't about dominating your surroundings. It comes from actively practicing how to drop the need to govern things that never belonged to you anyway. Epictetus hit this hard. He taught that true freedom means zeroing in on what's ours and dropping the rest. In our Stoic practice, we divide life into two simple buckets. The first bucket holds what we actually control. That means our thoughts, our choices, our responses, and the raw effort we bring to this exact moment. The second bucket holds everything else: other people's opinions, yesterday's mistakes, the ticking clock, and the endless outside forces that dictate final results. When we mix up those two categories, we start dumping massive amounts of emotional energy into fights we are guaranteed to lose. We try to force someone to like us. We play past failures on a loop, hoping to fix history. Or we try to hammer tomorrow into a very specific shape. These habits completely drain our mental focus, while giving us absolutely zero real power in return. Think about how often we trap ourselves in anger trying to fix someone else. A close friend acts in a way that totally lets us down. A partner completely drops the ball on our expectations, or a coworker stubbornly refuses to pitch in. Our gut reaction is to push back hard. We argue and criticize, trying to force them to change. But no matter how loud we get, that other person still owns their free will. Their actions run on their own past traumas, hidden beliefs, and deep fears, most of which we will never even see. Demanding control over someone else's actions usually just breeds stubborn resistance instead of real understanding. Stick with me. This is where our practice gets real. We must focus only on what actually belongs to us. We can speak our truth plainly, draw firm boundaries, and actively choose what kind of relationship we want to keep alive. Those moves reflect our own character and values. Past that line, their reaction is entirely their business. We see this exact same lesson when chasing career success. We often trick ourselves into thinking that if we just hustle harder and plan perfectly, we can completely erase risk from the road ahead. We try to forecast every tiny detail, armor up against every roadblock, and micromanage the finish line before we even start. Doing the prep work is great, but buying the illusion of total control just breeds chronic anxiety. Suddenly, every minor bump feels like a fatal crash. Seneca laid it out perfectly. Fate leads the willing and violently drags the reluctant. That perfectly captures the stress of fighting a pointless war against life's chaos. Once we accept that the unknown is baked into the journey, our whole relationship with hard work transforms. We still prepare fiercely. We still train with heavy discipline, but we stop treating every surprise detour like a personal attack. Instead, we adapt quickly, pivot our strategy, and keep moving. Think about prepping for a massive job interview. We dig into the company, drill our talking points, and polish our resume. All that sits squarely in our control, and it builds serious self-trust. But the second you walk in that room, the variables explode. The hiring manager might throw a massive curveball question. Their bad morning might sour the mood. Plus, the next person in line could bring a completely different skill set. If our minds are obsessed with forcing a job offer, panic moves right in. We start overanalyzing every single answer, stressing over their facial expressions, and doubting our own competence. The irony is, that desperate grip actually ruins our performance. But when we finally accept the final call isn't up to us, something powerful shifts. Our focus snaps right back to the present second. We listen closer, speak authentically, and let our hard work do the heavy lifting without the chokehold of perfectionism. Releasing the outcome never means walking away from our duty. It means we clearly see where our job ends. In philosophical practice, true peace drops in when we aim our energy only where it counts. Our task is to show up with integrity, balance, and grit, no matter what life throws on the table. Beyond that line, reality takes over. Life operates on a massive chain of events that no human can ever fully manage. When you and I finally drop the delusion that life owes us a perfect script, the mental weight just vanishes. All that energy we used to burn on anxiety becomes fuel for real action. The storms still hit, but we stop treating them like a personal insult against our ego. In our practice, this view builds unshakable confidence. We learn to trust our capacity to handle whatever life throws. Instead of demanding a friction-free life or gripping the future in fear, we step into the present moment with open eyes. Every choice becomes a testing ground for your character, not a frantic grab for control over the final result. This is the quiet power we aim for in Stoic practice. Drop the delusion of controlling life, and you master the one thing you own: your mind, your actions, your response to the immediate second. Yet I see so many sleepwalk through life, convinced something crucial is missing. Always feeling one step behind the curve. Never enough cash, never enough prestige, lacking validation, running out of the clock. In modern terms, we call this mental trap a scarcity mindset. When your brain obsesses over the void, every hurdle feels like hard proof that existence is rigged or broken. Openings shrink. Failures crush you. Comparison eats you alive. Even a solid win rings hollow because your focus instantly snaps to the next missing piece. As practitioners, we train for a radically different view. We recognize that genuine wealth ignores property and trophies. Real abundance starts in a mind trained to leverage what is already here while expanding. Epictetus nailed this logic centuries ago. He taught us that true riches mean shrinking your desires, not hoarding massive piles of stuff. I know that sounds backward today. You and I live in a culture that relentlessly pushes us to crave more. But strip away the noise and sit with it. Anyone endlessly multiplying their cravings will always be poor, regardless of their bank account. Every single trophy just breeds the next hungry expectation. But when we practice valuing the present, we forge an iron core that chaos cannot rattle. Make no mistake, this is not about killing ambition. Philosophy is never an excuse to quit. We practice holding the line between ruthless gratitude and disciplined forward momentum. True growth sparks from appreciating the baseline, not from the terrified panic of lacking enough. Let us look at two people walking into a room. The first enters and instantly ranks themselves against every soul there, scanning the crowd for who looks richer, sharper, or bolder. Their radar locks onto their own flaws. Anchored to weakness, they leak insecurity through every word and every tiny shift in posture. They pull their punches, terrified they will not make the cut. Solid alliances slip right past them because their ego is busy dodging phantom bullets. Now picture our second person, grounded in abundance. They walk in knowing they bring value to the table. Insight, genuine curiosity, bedrock decency, or hard-earned scars. They kill the urge to compare, treating conversations as active, fascinating investigations. Their presence commands the room because they stopped policing their own worth. Good outcomes gravitate to this stance, not because they are elite, but because a liberated mind operates without friction. Modern behavioral science echoes what we teach. The brain hunts down facts to justify its own bias. Decide the world is starving, and your radar will only find locked doors and proof that winning is a rigged game. But if you accept that life holds vast potential for evolution, your eyes snap open to pathways you walked past blindly yesterday. Our philosophical ancestors mapped this territory long before lab coats got involved. We know that your lens dictates your reality. Hyper-focus on your empty hands, and the world shrinks into a bitter brawl. Spot the sheer volume of intellect and grit around you, and the map expands. In our practice, ruthless gratitude unlocks this wider view. By forcing yourself to catalog your current assets, you actively rewire your brain to stop chasing shadows. Basic elements you took for granted hit with new weight. A solid crew, the power to adapt, the chance to sweat for a mission. These are foundational pillars most fools ignore while hunting mirages. We see Marcus Aurelius constantly train himself to respect the raw, simple facts of living. The privilege to reason, to strike with virtue, and to stand alongside humanity. This mental frame locked him into the now, destroying endless craving. Mastering this mindset fundamentally rewires how you attack your problems. If you buy the lie of scarcity, every wall proves the maze is dead. Blind panic instantly chokes out curiosity. But if you trust the process of growth, a brutal setback is just data collection, never a final verdict. A Stoic artist takes rejection as raw fuel to sharpen their edge. A grounded partner steps into relationships with eyes wide open, minus the exhausting paranoia. The outside world stays a chaotic mess either way, but that internal command center keeps your momentum driving forward. What you and I are building here isn't fake optimism. Life still hits hard, and the heavy lifting remains mandatory. The difference is your footing. Operating from deficit means you spend your whole life swinging wildly, trying to grab smoke before it vanishes. You and I are going to explore abundance today. It means seeing endless chances to learn, build, and connect. Our choices become driven by curiosity and quiet confidence, not fear. Trust me, this shift completely transforms your everyday mindset. Instead of sprinting through our days hunting for some missing piece, we start noticing that true fulfillment is already sitting right in front of us. Operating from that deep appreciation gives our daily work new power. We run on the fuel of possibility, completely leaving the anxiety of scarcity behind. In philosophy, we separate restless striving from truly meaningful action. Society teaches us that achieving success demands non-stop grinding. We are told to strictly control every single step of the process. Effort matters, yes, but the ancient Stoics taught me that hard work must eventually surrender to trust. Without that crucial balance, our action quickly becomes toxic strain. When we obsess over forcing an outcome, we actually build resistance. A little patience would have let that progress unfold naturally. That is true Stoic wisdom. It means knowing how to act, and exactly when to let go so reality can finish the job. Seneca nailed it. He wrote that steady effort plus patience always beats raw force fueled by anxiety. Those words expose a core rhythm of human existence. Real personal growth is never an overnight event. Whether I am building a business, deepening a friendship, or refining my own character, every single process demands time and breathing room. Still, our human minds turn restless when success stalls. Doubt sneaks in, whispering that our strategy is completely broken. We get tempted to push harder, pivot abruptly, or mess with the natural timeline. Ironically, this blind impatience shatters the very growth we just started building. Let us use a classic analogy. Picture a farmer sowing seeds. He prepares the soil, places each seed with heavy intention, waters the ground, and secures clear access to sunlight. Those steps are entirely within his control. But once planted, he absolutely cannot force those crops to grow any faster. Yanking sprouts will not accelerate the harvest. Digging them up daily to check progress only destroys the roots. He has to trust the invisible work happening underground. My Stoic practice follows that exact same pattern. Our only job is preparation. We act with strict discipline and build an environment that strongly supports growth. Past that line, results emerge through time and fate. You cannot rush it. This heavily applies to relationships too. When we feel anxious about where a bond is heading, we try controlling every interaction. We hunt for constant validation. We overthink every single text and force the connection forward before it even has room to breathe. Even if we just crave intimacy, the heavy pressure of that urgency suffocates the natural rhythm of genuine trust and understanding. But when I show interest and still give them space, a grounded dynamic forms. The conversation just flows effortlessly. Both sides feel respected. The bond grows at a real, unforced pace. This balance of action and release secures all true human connections. Stick with me. Professional life works exactly the same way. I might spend a decade sharpening my skills, studying, and mastering my craft. That is the aligned action we Stoics preach. Yet the second the final outcome becomes my only goal, tension ruins every single decision. My mind starts obsessing over whether recognition will hit soon enough, or if success will look perfect. That pressure turns meaningful career growth into pure anxiety. But when we dedicate everything to the quality of the work and completely drop the need to control the outcome, our mindset shifts. The actual craft becomes the main focus. Innovation returns. Mental clarity sharpens. Big opportunities suddenly appear out of nowhere because we stop letting the fear of immediate results trap us. Marcus Aurelius left himself a brutal, simple reminder. Do what you must, then accept whatever happens. That perfectly captures balanced Stoic action. The first half is pure responsibility. I prepare, act with honor, and chase my goals with discipline. The second half demands radical acceptance. Once my action is done, the result belongs to a chaotic world way beyond my control. By drawing that hard line, my mind drops the exhausting burden of predicting the future. Releasing control builds resilience. If I demand every outcome must go exactly to plan, any small pivot feels like crushing defeat. But knowing my influence has limits makes me highly adaptable. A slammed door never means the end of the road. It just becomes raw data guiding my next strategic move. Instead of drowning in disappointment, I stay totally free to adjust my path with bold courage. This adaptability is the exact quiet strength I practice. Day by day, this philosophy locks you into a much deeper relationship with the present moment. Instead of projecting all your mental energy forward, sweating over future success, you lock in on the quality of the work right now. Every action holds weight because it proves your character. When tomorrow finally arrives, it will be built entirely by the choices you made today. So what do we learn here? Peace comes from pairing hard effort with wisdom, never from demanding that reality obeys us. When we train ourselves to act decisively and then detach from the outcome, we walk through life with quiet, unbreakable strength. Our daily practice and growth continue, and our minds remain anchored because we trust our disciplined actions and whatever fate brings next.